What's happening, guys? This is James Blum with MMOHUT.com, and I'm here with the senior producer, Dragon's Prophet.
Right.
Would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Todd Carson, and like I said, senior producer for Sony Online Entertainment with Dragon's Prophet.
All right, excellent. So let's talk about what has gone on with Dragon's Prophet since the closed beta and some of the changes that have been brought on by even the community.
Yeah, well, a lot of changes by the community. So we went into open beta on May 29th. And even during closed beta, we had a lot of feedback from the players, made a few changes. We're working with RuneWaker, who's the developer. They're based out of Taiwan. They also made Runes of Magic. And they're really great. They're a long ways away, and there's a little bit, a language difference, but they're actually really good at taking feedback and making changes right away. A classic example is the way that you actually, the way that you capture dragons, and then the way that you summon them, and how that's all worked. So originally, when the game came out in closed beta, you would capture a dragon, and under your character icon, there's a yellow bar. There's red's your health, and blue's like your kind of magic or your powers, and then the yellow bar, and it would drain while you were trying to capture a dragon, or when you had a dragon summoned. So you'd capture this dragon, then you'd fight with it, and you had to wait for it to fill up, and then you could fight with it, and then as it started fighting, you're like, oh, I see another cool dragon, I want to go get it. Oh, but I have to unsummon this dragon and wait around. And
I'm going to hang out over here for a little while
yeah,
first.
The players are like, oh, this sucks because someone else just went and got that dragon. So we gave feedback to RuneWaker, and they said, oh, that's not cool. And players were also, and I felt the same way, like, hey, I've got several dragons. I can have up to 6 in my dragon stable with me all the time. But I have to open up the stable, click a different one, then summon him. Hey, it's cool that I can do that, but isn't there a better way to do it? So RuneWaker made a few changes to the game. Now, when you have a dragon summoned, there's just a little icon with a countdown timer, and it doesn't affect that dragon soul energy, the yellow bar. That's only used when you're capturing a dragon or using your dragon soul abilities, and it actually regenerates while you're fighting. So it pretty much stays full. And then we added 6 icons underneath your character, up to 6, depending on how many dragons you have. And you just use the Alt-F keys. So, again, this is only one change, but it's made a huge impact on the players and the way you play the game. So now you can see all the dragons you have. You can see when they're resting and when they're recovering from fighting. You can quickly interchange them, and then you can always go capture a new one.
Excellent. Yeah, that seems like a huge just overhaul in the way that operates.
It is. We made other changes too. We've changed the attributes. We've changed the talent tree. So when you hit level 15, there's a talent tree. We've made changes. We actually just reset, just this last update in July, we reset all the players' points because we made some changes, changed some descriptions, and it's beta, right? So we're like, here you go, redistribute your points. We've made a few changes.
And so speaking of changes, there's you were showing us earlier some of the bosses that were in Winterfall. Winterfall. It's not Game of Thrones.
Well, winter was coming, and now it's here, right?
That's right. There you go.
Yeah.
And so you were saying that you integrated some of the features that were in some of those boss fights back into the earlier dungeons?
Well, what we're doing is we changed the way some dungeons work. So, early on, the dungeons were kind of just a free-for-all. You go in and you could just really, what we found is we were testing it out and checking it. We're like, we can just run right through the dungeon, kind of skip all the creatures in there, and just go fight the boss, which is okay, but it's not really the way the game was intended to be played.
Sure.
So we changed the functionality of dungeons now, and when you zone into the instance dungeon, you're given a quest, and you basically need to complete that quest. There's like an invisible, it's not really invisible, it's like a portal barrier there, and you have to complete that stage. You have to complete that quest to get to the next stage of the dungeon. So it really
unlocks.
Yeah, it's unlocks, and we put more bosses in. Some of the new bosses in Wintertide, like the ones we were just showing here today to you guys, have some really cool functionality. The last boss in the Iron Forge Fortress, I think that's right, Iron Fang Fortress, rides a chariot, and you have to throw spears at him until he falls off the chariot, and then you have to go fight him. He's got this double axe.
It's a two-stage type.
Totally.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we've had a lot of cool things. There's one of the other bosses that's throwing food at you, giant, and throwing food at you, and really, it's cool. So we've had a lot of cool stuff like that. The other thing that we've changed to all of the epic dungeons is we removed the survival mode, making some changes to it, and we're going to reintroduce that back in on September 18th at launch. And survival mode is basically, these are hard dungeons. There's 3 difficulty levels. It's to come back and play at higher level, play with some guild mates or within group. And then the 4th level is now going to be survival mode, and it should work properly now that we have the new quests in there. You have to not die. Otherwise, all the NPCs get reset. You got to start back over. So
Oh, nice.
it's just something for a little extra
Just a
challenge.
little bit of a hardcore element there. That's
But
cool. Excellent.
Again, the game, we try to let the game be catered to everyone, right? It's free to play. You can really play all the way through as free to play. We offer a lot of station cache options in the marketplace and within the UI and the gameplay itself, more for a convenience factor. So again, you don't have to capture any dragons, really, if you don't want to. I don't know why you wouldn't.
Why you wouldn't? Yeah, exactly.
But it's possible. You can play through the whole game without paying. You can play through, and you don't have to do any dungeons, or you can just do the easy level dungeons. But there's a lot of options there for players to play the way they want to.
So one really cool feature that is sort of new is the dragon lair and the
dragon chamber. Yeah,
the chamber. Yeah,
sorry.
And you can hold now you can hold even more dragons in the chamber and things like that. So it's more than just a holding place. You can do a lot more in there. And explain that a little bit.
Sure. So when you capture dragons, they go into your dragon stable, and you have up to 6 slots available that you can have in your dragon stable. Those are dragons you carry around with you when you're running around the world. Then when you go back to town, there's a dragon manager, and he opens the dragon lair. And there's 6 more slots there. So you basically just in your inventory, you pull the dragons. You drag the dragons. That's good, huh? You pull the dragons from your dragon stable into the dragon lair. And then there, dragons can do a lot of different things. They can gather resources for you. So you can really put your dragons to work, and they can actually be doing stuff while you're offline. Yeah,
that's awesome.
or while you're playing. They're in there doing stuff. Up to 24 hours, you can put them to work.
Can you allocate what resources they gather?
You can. So there's 6 different resources because there's 6 different types of crafting. But there's 2 other things dragons can do. They can actually increase a particular skill. They can train up a skill, or they can just train themselves. You send them out and they do training, but they basically increase their level. Now dragons can only go to level 25, and then you actually have to start acquiring other types of points to get dragons higher. It's complicated, but basically what you have to do is you have to give dragons to the latest temple. You're basically getting rid of the dragon, but then the temple says, thank you for these dragons, we're going to give you these other resources, and you use those to increase the level of your other dragons. So you end up having to capture hundreds of different dragons.
Wow. And you were mentioning earlier that they can actually influence each other? You can put them in there and...
So that's one of the other things in your dragon lair. So you can send them out to gather resources. Then you can put them in the field training. So you take 2 dragons, you put them up there, and then you have them... Basically, there's an opportunity for them, and you'll see it on your UI. They'll show you the different skills that they can each learn from each other. And it's a random chance of if it'll happen and what skills. And, every player gets so many free chances per day. And then if they want to do more, they play station cache. And your dragons can learn skills from each other. And what most players end up doing is they find a few dragons they really like. They're cool looking, whatever. They have they have a lot of slots, so it's random. When you capture a dragon, there's a random number of slots available and a random number of skills they have. So you look for a dragon that has a lot of available slots, and then you start field training with it to get the right skills.
So essentially, if you work hard enough, you can customize a dragon.
You can customize a dragon really to be anything you want.
That is really cool.
Yeah.
And speaking of customize, it looks like you reintroduced some of the color palettes and things like that. Just be able to customize on the fly.
Yeah. So and that's actually going to be coming. That'll be in our August update. So we're going to do another update this month with some minor stuff. We're changing some of the attributes and the point distribution, and there's going to be a character customization within the game itself. So when you create your character, you have all these cool options, but then you're kind of stuck with them. Right? And it's like, oh, that's my character. Well, I can't change it. But now we're going to be adding a thing where you can actually go through the color palette and assign colors that you've unlocked. You can assign colors to your gear, to your hair, your face and stuff. You can re-customize your face and your body type. And so a lot of different cool things like that.
That kind of brings up a different question. Is there any plans in the working on doing any sort of customization with the dragons themselves?
There's a little
and things like that.
No, you can't change the way they look. But what you can do is you can add gear to the dragons. So there's 3 gear spots on there, and so a lot of that's through crafting. You can find some of it through boss fights as well. But it's like a bridle and a saddle and a piece of armor.
These are visual changes.
They're visual changes, yeah. And you can see there are dragons out in the world with actually armor on. You can see what that looks like. And there's a lot of players now with armor for their dragons. So if I can jump back real quick to the dragon lair.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's another new thing that in July we added. So right now, before that, you could have 6 dragons in your stable, 6 dragons in the dragon lair. That was it. 12 dragons.
12.
You know, and we tell players, you know, there's over 100 different species of dragons out there, and they're like, yeah, it's great, but I can only have 12. Like,
you got to be selective.
What the heck? Yeah. And so we talked to Rune Waker about that and said, like, look, players really want, I mean, they want the Pokemon effect, right? They want to collect all the dragons. Not everyone, but there's players out there, completionists like myself, like, I want every dragon. I want to complete every quest, you know, that kind of thing. So we added the Dragon Chamber, which gives you 96 more slots for dragons. So now you can have 108 different dragons. Now, when they're in the Dragon Chamber, you have to go to the Dragon Manager, and they're in the chamber, and they can't gather resources. You can't use them in fights. You can pull them back out. But it's really just like, hey, this is like my trophy room, almost, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And then we're adding an achievement as well. And the details of that are still in the works right now, but we're going to be adding an achievement at launch for collecting different dragons. So more like a book, like a UI book. It's like, hey, look, here's the different types of dragons.
That's cool. That's cool.
A lot of different changes
that would be neat to be able to integrate that into the player housing, where if you have friends come and visit your player house and they can see your dragon collection essentially from there. That would be neat.
We have, one of the first things that I actually asked, because we have a lot of, in our other SOE games, we have a lot of housing stuff and trophies and things like that. And I'm like, how about every time you capture a dragon, like you get a little model to like put in your house, right? Yeah, and first we were like, how about a little animating dragon, that can follow you around? And there were some technical issues with that, and it's something that still might happen because we are introducing new pets. Like, not pets that like you can fight with, but like little dudes that follow you around. Like a little squirrel or a rabbit or something like that, a little things like that. And I'm like, what about a little dragon? That's cool.
Yeah.
But we're talking about that. So even if it just stays in your house.
Why not?
Cool.
Yeah, that would be neat. That would be neat. So when you introduce new areas like Wintertide and places like that, you also introduce new dragons and things like that. What goes along with introducing those dragons, and what makes them different, or what makes them associated with the place that you?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of storyline behind the dragons. I mean, so Wintertide takes place. That's where the second Dragon War was. We don't get to see it, but we see the giant, ancient dragons, the legendary dragons that are there. Their bones are wrapped around entire towns. They're so big.
So cool looking.
Yeah, and there's a lot of storyline that goes in the quest there. And then the ancient dragons that are there, I mean, it's their skill set that they have available to them. The rarity, the way they look is a little bit different. Some of them have, different dragons that you'll find throughout the world. There's rares all throughout the world. They'll have different attributes. They'll have different abilities. They'll have different speeds. So, like, some of them fly a little bit faster, run a little bit faster, things like that. And,
that's pretty neat.
Just mixing it up. Yeah.
Well, the game is scheduled to launch on September 18th, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And how do players get access to the game?
They just go to dragonsprofitthegame.com.
Excellent.
And create an account and log in and play.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just, the other big feature for launch that we've been really, it's why we've been waiting for the launch date, it's the Frontier system. So right now we have the floating islands where there's open housing lots, and there's PvP up there, but there's really not anything else you can do. And so we're going to be introducing the Citadel functionality where guilds can form alliances and then go capture these citadels. It's part of the Frontier system. And then they will be like the overlords for that island. And the islands are cross server, so like everyone, no matter what server you play on, everyone goes to the islands together. So these guild alliances will be able to capture citadels. They'll be the overlord of the island. Set tax rates, do other stuff, create NPCs to guard their citadel. And that's going to be really fun because then there's going to be a lot of guild PvP action going on. A lot of epic battles. There's actually some mounted combat, and not on your dragon, but on some of the NPCs that are there. So there's some really cool stuff that's just in the works. I'm actually going out to Taiwan next week to go visit Rune Waker and check it out. I'm going to see it for the first time, so I'm really excited.
That's going to be cool.
Yeah. So that's the other big thing at launch, so we're excited.
Yeah, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of changes to launch. And
we're actually, that's a good point. We're modifying the level 1 through 30, the experience curve, polishing a lot of the storyline, as well as making the experience curve a little bit easier. So we want players to kind of start leveling up a little faster and because we're adding more content, so it's like get to that cool content sooner.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate the interview.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much.
It's great.
And good luck with everything.
All right. Thank you.
Sony.